Let's get into it. What if your deepest wish to end suffering was trapped in a legal and moral tug of war? Today we're spilling the tea on the Noelia Castillo Ramos euthanasia case. Hey, it's Emma, and I'm feeling contemplative today. This one is heavy but important, and honestly, it says a lot about who we are as a society. So, let's talk. Noelia Castillo Ramos was a young woman in Spain whose name became a landmark for how that country handles euthanasia. In 2022, she survived a suicide attempt that left her with irreversible paraplegia and chronic, brutal pain. In 2024, she formally asked for euthanasia under Spanish law. Her dad fought it, courts fought back, appeals stacked up, and after a 601-day delay, the approval still held. In 2026, she died by euthanasia at a healthcare center in Sant Pere de Ribes, near Barcelona. She was just 25, one of the youngest in Spain to do so. The stakes here were huge: autonomy, mental health, faith, politics, media, all crashing into each other. Let me set the scene emotionally for a sec. I remember this one dinner where my friends and I got into a heated debate about assisted dying. Nothing like tapas and ethical quagmires, right? One friend was absolutely no under any circumstance. Another was all about choice and dignity. And me, I was caught in the middle, because I get the fear of making an irreversible call when someone might be vulnerable, but I also get the desperation of pain that doesn't clock out at 5. We were talking over each other, getting salty, and we paused and actually listened. The shift happened when someone said, "Imagine it's you. Your body hurts every minute. You've tried the meds, the therapy, the procedures, and it's still there. Would you want the state or your family to overrule you?" That was the moment empathy finally edged out ego. Okay, let's move on. Eli 5 time. Euthanasia is when a doctor ends a patient's life to stop unbearable suffering, but only under very strict rules. In Spain, their organic law on euthanasia says it's not just for terminal illness, it's also for chronic and irreversible suffering that's serious and constant. Think of it like the legal system saying, if the pain is permanent and devastating and you're making an informed choice, you can choose dignity on your terms. In Noelia's case, the legal basis was her chronic and irreversible pain from that 2022 injury, not depression. That detail matters because people kept getting it wrong online and the misinformation did a number on the public conversation, honey. Now, the people at the center of this story, Noelia herself, a young woman living with paraplegia, neurological damage, constant pain, and diagnosed with obsessive-compulsive disorder and borderline personality disorder. And then her father, who opposed the euthanasia hard, arguing she didn't have the capacity to make that decision because of her mental health. He got support from the Christian Lawyers Association, a conservative legal group in Spain known for fighting euthanasia and abortion.
Courts weighed in, and the rulings were crystal clear. The High Court of Justice California said mental health diagnoses don't automatically erase decision-making capacity. Spain's Supreme Court dismissed the father's appeal. The Constitutional Court said his claim didn't even show a constitutional rights violation, and the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg also said no. Layer after layer of judicial review, and the through line was autonomy with safeguards, which is a big deal precedent-wise.
But those 601 days, that's almost 2 years. Even with approval, appeals function like speed bumps the size of mountains. You could feel the clock. It was like, the law said yes, but the process kept saying maybe later. That delay is gonna haunt policy debates for a while, just saying. Public reaction was loud and polarized. Politically, the left-leaning parties in Spain, PSOE, ERC, BNG, EH Bildu, and Sumar, backed the decision. The right-leaning parties, the People's Party and Vox, tore into it. Religious leadership came in strong too. Luis Ardello, Archbishop of Valladolid and head of the Spanish Episcopal Conference, condemned it, as did José Mazuelas Perez, the Bishop of the Canary Islands, and other bishops who framed it as a tragic cocktail of suffering and institutional failures. That divide is the culture war in high definition. And then, of course, the noise machine kicked in. Misinformation flew. Some media framed it as euthanasia for depression, which was false. Her father's legal team floated claims about organ donation commitments and doctors having financial interests, also false. Fox leader Santiago Abascal amplified a story that she'd been gang-raped by unaccompanied child migrants in a care center. Fact-checkers later said the timeline didn't fit, and Noelia herself had publicly said the assaults she went through were at nightclubs and weren't reported to police. Heavy, complicated, and deeply personal. The point is, the internet doesn't do nuance, but the law has to. Real talk, if I were in her position, constant pain, limited mobility, battling not just my body but also a courtroom and a news cycle that keeps twisting my story, I can see why you would cling to autonomy like it's oxygen. and still, I empathize with a parent who is terrified their child is making a permanent decision in a storm. Two truths can sit at the same table, even when they can't make peace. Here's the big unresolved question: legal capacity when mental health is in the mix. Do we default to protection or autonomy? Courts here said evaluate the person, not the label. I agree. Mental health diagnoses are not an automatic no-go for tough decisions. Capacity is about understanding, reasoning, and consistency, not about being perfect. But after seeing the 601-day stall, I also think Spain needs clearer guardrails so appeals don't become slow-motion cruelty. Protect people, yes, but don't trap them. 2 more beats before I wrap up. British pianist James Rhodes, who is also a survivor of child sexual abuse and lives in Spain, publicly offered to pay for Noelia's care. A human moment in all the chaos and a reminder that community can show up even when systems hesitate. And Pop Culture Watch, the night before she died, Antenna 3 aired her final interview. She said this was her choice, and she didn't want others to request euthanasia because of her. That line sticks. It cut through the discourse because it wasn't a movement speech. It was one person drawing a circle around her own pain and saying, "This is mine." When the procedure finally happened in 2026, it was done with intravenous drugs, first deep sedation, then respiratory arrest, clinical, careful, meant to prevent pain. She chose to be alone, even though her mother wanted to be there. That detail is gonna live rent-free in my head. Autonomy to the last moment. I won't lie, that hit me in the chest. Zoom out, she was the 3rd youngest among more than 1,000 euthanasia cases in Spain. So this wasn't just another legal file, it reframed the conversation about youth, disability, and dignity. It proved courts can uphold autonomy even when the world is screaming, and it exposed how fast misinformation can hijack a life story. Big yikes, but also high-key necessary to confront.
Next time, I'm excited to dive into another spicy debate: the impact of cancel culture on modern media. Who gets canceled, who gets a glow-up, and who gets receipts pulled from 2012? We're going there.
So, that's the tea, folks. Sit with that for a sec. Later.